Okay. Hello. Thanks for joining us in our session regarding React and Drupal directory component. During this session, we will show you how to use React inside to single directory components, optimizing the JavaScript build. My name is Francesco Battaglia. I have been in Drupal for 3 years. I'm also a teacher and co-organizer of Drupal camp. Co-organizer of Drupal Ermo meetup.
Yep. My name is Vincenzo Gambino. I've been working with Drupal for 16 years now. I'm also the co-author of the book Jamstack Development, where I explain how to build, of course, application using Gatsby and Drupal, Gatsby and Sanity, and also an Alexa skill using Sanity as a backend. I'm also a speaker. This is the way I like to contribute back to the Drupal community. And with Francesco, I'm also the co-organizer of the Drupal Ermo meetup. The Drupal Ermo name came from the name of our city, Palermo, and the word Drupal. So we mixed Drupal and Palermo, making Drupal Ermo. And I'm also the co-organizer of the Drupal Camp Italy, where last year we did the edition in Rome, and this year, we'll do in Bologna on the 22nd of October. In Bologna, call for paper and call for sponsor are open if you want to submit a session. So if you like Drupal, tortellini, lasagne, and spaghetti bolognese, that's the right event for you. So today, the session is going to be split into 2 parts. There is my part, the boring part, where I'm going to talk about the theory. So the difference between the different approach of the coupled application. I'm going to talk about the basic of single directory components, about the basic of React and Vite. Then Francesco will show the real fun part, where we're going to show, when he's going to show the code, how to build the React app, build a component, add React to the component, configure Vite, stand, and then a short demo. So first, we start with the difference between headless, progressive decoupled, and progressive decoupled. Headless is when you build an application, when you build just the backend, without thinking about the front end, without thinking who is going to use the application. You open the API, you just give the access to your API, and then the consumer will use your API, and you don't care how they're going to use it, which field they need or not. In a decoupled world, we have the backend and the front end. In this case, we have a React app, but can be any other front end, that are built together. So the backend is built based on the front end and the other way around, too. But what we're going to show today is the progressive decoupled, or in this case, is the React embedded, where basically we have our Drupal. React lives, in our case, inside the team, but could be also in a module. And then you can expose content through JSON API, but in our case, we're going to use single directory component. And we will have the React component rendering some of the information that are in the single directory component. A component is simple concept, is a modular, reusable part of a web page. It's made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And some of the examples are like buttons, cards, form, navigation, menus, and so on. And the response from Drupal, how to use a component, is the single directory component. Is the Drupal core implementation of them. All the files are grouped into one directory. And we use, of course, Twig instead of HTML. Then we also have the YAML file for the configuration, CSS, and JavaScript. The nice part of this is that Drupal will auto-generate the library, the CSS and the JavaScript. So we don't need to add our JavaScript and CSS again in the theme libraries, in the YAML file. And this part of the core since 10.3. What are the benefits of single directory components? So you can organize all the files in one place. So you have the folder with your component, like a button, a link, a card. And as I said, it automatically creates the libraries, so there is no need to add to the libraries YAML. You can reuse it across pages and projects, and this, of course, guarantees the same look and feel across different projects. And then, because it's isolated into folder, it's much easier to test. So how we build it? The requirements are very simple. We have the components folder inside your theme or module. You can nest other folder if you want to group them by type, and it requires just two files, the component YAML and the component twig file. Bear in mind that it's twig and is not html.twig. This is the folder structure. So we have our theme, component folder, and then we have my button. Then we have my button component YAML, button twig, and then CSS and JS that will be automatically auto-loaded if they match the same name of the component. So this is the component YAML file. You can have one empty component YAML file and it will work. But just to be a little bit more organized, we add by default the name, the description, and also the group if you want. Then it will look like this in our YAML file. So we have the name, the description, and the group. Scrolling down into component YAML, we can add also the status, if it's going to be experimental, stable, deprecated, obsolete, and then the replace. Because other themes in Drupal, they also have single directory component, and then you can replace the behavior, actually the component, with your own in your theme. The replace does not work in the module. It only works in the theme. So this is an example of the YAML file with status and replace, where we have the module here, the theme, and then the component. Then we have the library overrides. So as I said, single directory component automatically loads JavaScript and CSS from the component if they match the same name of the component. And, but with library overrides, you can control the behavior. You can add, for example, the script tag attributes, or you can add other JS file from your component that have a different name, or other dependencies in this way. So we have here library overrides, the dependency. This is really similar to the library's YAML file. And then the JS. So I have my component, which was already automatically loaded, but I wanted to add this attribute here, so I was able to do it. And then I got my other JS file here, so it's an extra JS file. You don't need to add this one if it has the same name and you don't want to add any attribute. Then inside the component, you can pass prop and slots. This is the same concept across many frameworks. So as you can see, we have also in the Drupal layout where region and settings. In React.js, we have children and props. In Vue.js, we have slot and prop, and Symfony, we have block and prop. Usually, a slot is a renderable array, some other component you want to render inside your component, and props are the actual data that you are passing to the component. So slots, as I said, are area-free renderable array. You can pass a Drupal rendered array, nested component, twig blocks, and HTML markup. Hasn't got any complicated UI logic. We only know inside the component if they are empty or not, or multiple or not. And it looks like this. So we have the slots. We don't need to assign any type. We just have like the key and the value, and that's it. So those are two components that we're passing to be shown inside the other component. The props are actually data that we're passing inside the component, so variables that we are giving to the component. And we need to define it in the schema. And this, from the schema, then the system will validate the type that we're passing, and it will throw an error if the types are not the same. And we can have the key, the allowed values if you want to limit the values, and the type that the prop is, so like that. So we have the props, the properties, so we have dismissible with the title, and then the type, so this most likely is going to be a checkbox, and then the heading level where we can pass the HTML tag that we can use, so we can use just 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it's going to be an integer. So how do we show then the single directory component after we build our twig file and the component YAML file? We return it in this way. So we have the type component, the component name, the props that we want to pass, and then the slots if we want to render some other HTML part inside it. This can be done, for example, from a controller. You can render it like this. Or you can include it in your twig file in this way. So inside twig, you have include, the name of the component, the text, some icon I'm passing here. Or you can use the twig embed when you're using the twig block. So you can pass the slot here. So now that we know how we can build a component and how it's going to render it, we can talk about React. React is a JavaScript library that is used for build interactive components. It's been developed by Facebook in 2013, is open source, and is widely used across the web. And why do we want to add it in Drupal? Because some of our UI elements need some more interaction, and the twig file are good when we render it server side, but then are like a bit limited on the client side. And in this project, our goal is to use React only where you need the interactivity, not the component. The other component will use twig. If we need interactivity, we'll use React. React uses the JSX syntax rules. So every block must have at least one parent element, so a div, a section, or a fragment. It uses class name instead of class, so when we define the class of the div, if we want to apply some style, we need to use the class name. And all the attributes are camel case. And then if you want to use variables inside the JSX, we use the curly braces. So React component looks like this. So we have our component here, we define the function, then we export, and then we can use it. We can call somewhere else, as we can see on the next slides. We can also pass data to here. So we have here our user, the name is Reese, the height is really tall. Then we have the image URL, the image size. Then we have our component here. And we are getting the variables from this object. And we are passing down to our component. So we have the user name there, user height, image URL, username, and then the size here. So how do we pass then the props? Because in the previous example, we are just defining a static object here. But the right way of passing props to the component is in this way. So here we have the usage of our component, and here is our component. So we pass the variables here, we deconstruct the object, and then we use it here with curly braces. Then we can also have nested component. So we have our first component here, the second one here. So when we call this component, we will also show at the other component here. Now, once we build our component with our JS, we need to run the build command. We run the npm run dev if we are developing locally, so we want to see the changes as soon as they happen, or we run the npm run build that compiles and bundles all the files into one big files only. So the problem here is that goes in construct to the single directory component logic of loading the JS file only when it's needed, is that React gets all your components that you created in React and puts it into one big index file, into one JS file. So this JS file will always be loaded in all pages, even some part of the JS file is not needed, so it will always be loaded. So it will look basically like this. So we have our this folder, that is the build folder, and then we have one huge file with CSS and one huge file with our JS. But now, as Francesco will show, we need to split those files. So each component will have its own JS, that then we will attach it to our component. In this case, we can load the JS only when is needed. And we'll use the Vite package, which is stands from French quick, has been built by the same creator of Vue.js, and is a build command where you can add more settings on how you can split those files and how can be reused. So now that the boring part is done, I will pass the word to Francesco, and then he can carry on and show you how to build one. Thanks.
Okay. Now we are going to see the practical implementation of React inside the Drupal single directory components. what we are going to see. In the next slide, we are covering the full setup of the modern React application. We are starting to creating the project. By creating the project and introducing Zustand to manage shared states across the components without prop drilling or providers. From there, we are going to configuring Git. Then we are finally building to self-contained components. We're building self-contained components that each have a single responsibility. So either reading or updating the states. So first of all, we need to install a theme. So we recommend the contribute theme for the purpose of this talk. You can do it in a very classical Drupal way. So you can install it with Composer, download with Composer, and then install it with Rush or the extend Drupal backend page, admin backend page. So Composer requires Bootstrap 5, and then Rush team install Bootstrap. Why we have to use a contributed team? Because they are maintained by the community as well, with frequent updates. They have compatibility, and we can start to develop faster. So for the purpose of this talk, we have used the Bootstrap team and created sub-team starting from it. The Bootstrap team is single directory component oriented and speed up our development since it came with 2 sub-team creation scripts that can help us. So one for the simple CSS team, sub-team, and one for the SAS powered one. So now, as you can see, we have a full Bootstrap-based team. So this is how our folder structure is at this moment. So now it's time to create our components. So we create, as Vincenzo said earlier, create a folder named components inside our team. So we have inside our team components folder, we have two components that are button and title. So now we are going to build our React components. So first inside our custom team, we install the React code base using the Git build tool by running this command. So npm create git at latest my-app -- template React. So we simply named it in this demonstration React, but you can use whatever name you prefer. Once React is installed, it may look like in this screenshot. We will use the SRC folder to write the component common logic like the store file, API, and so on. Okay, so moving on, we can create the SRC folder inside each of our single directory component, and it will host our React code. So inside the SRC folder, we add the component related files, so the index.jsx and the component JSX file. We will name the component like our component in Drupal. So if his name is button, we can call it button. So we need to have at least one index.jsx files, which will append our components to its rated template file. Okay, let's talk about state. State is data that can change over the time and drives what UI shows. Think of it as a variable that React watches. When it changes, the screen updates. So for example, a counter going from 0 to 1 is a state. It changes and the UI needs to show that. Local states lives inside the component it was created in, fine when only one component needs it. but as soon as two different parts of your app need the same data, local state is enough anymore. States can be all anything, so numbers, strings, objects, array, and booleans. Okay, the classic React way to share props, state is through props. So a parent passes data down its children, simple and clean when components are close together. But imagine a navbar at the top and the sidebar with a menu on the left, both needing the same data. Their common ancestor might be the root project, no? The root of the entire app. You would have to lift the state all the way up and thread it down every component in between, even the ones that don't care about it all. That's called prop drilling. So without a state manager, we have two bad options. One, that is the props drilling, as we said before, and the other one is the React context. React context fixes that, providing a way to pass data through the components tree without having to pass props down manually at every level. But every component that uses it re-renders whenever anything in the context changes. Even if the part they care about didn't. Zustand avoids both. Each component picks only what it needs, only update when the specific type things changes. Simple, small, and no setup needed. So, what is Zustand? Zustand, German for state, is a tiny library that solves one problem, sharing state between. So the idea is simple. You create a store, put your data and action inside it, and import it wherever you need it. No providers, no reducers, no boilerplates, just a hook. The smart part is the selector pattern. Each component tells the store exactly what it needs, and Zustand only re-renders that component when the specific piece changes. Nothing more, nothing less. A small library, but it handles sync action, middlewares, the DevTools and local storage, and so on. So here we have our Zustand store. So we import the create from Zustand, and then we create our store. So we have the state, so count is 0 now, and we have 4 actions. One, to increase the count using the previous state. One, to decrease count also using the previous state. One, to initialize the count with a value, and one to reset count, so it can be again 0. Okay, here we have our first component. So we import our store and grab two functions from it, the increase count and the initialize count, with the use effect, which is called when the component is loaded, only once when the component is loaded, because we are not passing any dependencies. Here we can pass the dependencies to reinitialize the component when the dependencies update. We initialize the count, and then we can increase the count by clicking the button. Also, this component had 3 props that came from our React single directory component. That is the label. Here we have also a default value. So we have the label, the initial count, and the variant for the button. We use them in the initial count there, the variant for styling our button, and increase count from the state to increase our count. And also we have a label for our button. The other component is the title. This is a simple component which will read only from our store our state count. So he also have a prop. Sorry, you can hear me? Yes. Okay. So he have also a props that arrives from the our single directory component, which in this case will be the node title. So this is our index.jsx files where we import our libraries and also our button, for example. Then we have to get the twig element, and we can do that by selecting the element by its data attribute. So this is the data react button. And then we get the properties from our twig component. This can be done with that property by the element of the element that have the label, the initial count, and the variant. Optionally, we can merge also the Drupal settings provided by the Windows, and then we can create our element, our React element, and then render it. So the button, passing to it the props and the Drupal config. So now we can talk about Vite. So Vite is our build tool. Its configuration lives in the viteconfig.js, where we define everything about our project gets built. How our projects get built include chunk strategies, which control how the final JavaScript file are, and grouped for production. React support is not built by default, so we add it through a plugin, either Vite.js plugin React or Vite.js plugin React SVC, which uses the SVC transpiler instead the bubble one. So this is used as SWC transpiler, this is the bubble transpiler. SVC transpiler is Rust based and is more powerful. When we run our build commands, Vite takes all our source code and produces optimized production ready bundle, minified chunk, and then they're ready to be deployed. Okay, first we have to define our theme path, so we can use it for the at build time for the component, for our component. Then we need to set up an auto-discover. So Vite can auto-discover our components, our React components, and build them to the single directory component folder. So first of all, we call the glob sync that will map for us and we get an array of all indexes inside our component folders, and then we reduce it in an object having the key for the key, the name of our component, and for the value, the absolute path of that component. Here we have to define our plugins as we saw previously. So Vite doesn't support React natively, so we have to add it by this plugin. In the define key, we can define our constant, so we will be substituted at build time. And then in the resolve key, we have another object with aliases. Aliases help us to for the dependencies. So when we write our components inside Drupal single directory component folder, we are out of our React application. So we need to map them for when we import them. So we have this will be the absolute path of that library. For example, React or React DOM or Zustand or the store one, which handles our state. So here we have the build. So with the lib key, we are telling to Git to build our project as a library, in a library mode, instead of a normal web application. So our component can be used. The out dir will be our team dir, and we are to make sure to set empty out dir to false. Otherwise, at build time, that folder will be empty. Then we have roll down options, where we pass properties directly to roll down. Roll down is a module bundler for JavaScript, which compiles small pieces of code into something larger and more complex, such as a library or application. Inside it, we have two options. We have the out options, where we define the entry file names that expect a pattern for the that expect a pattern for our chunks. So it supports a placeholder like this one. So it will be at build time. It will be the component name. So we can have here, for example, components, React, button.js. So we have the chunk file names. That is a pattern for shared libraries like React. So this will be, for example, JS, React, React.js, or index.js, for like in this example. Then we have the code split. Code splitting allows us to group our libraries into a single file. So all our React libraries will be in the same file. So this time is index. So this will be JS React index.js. So this is our component. The button component YAML stores all the data of the components, like the name, props, slots, libraries. It will be placed under the button folder, and its name will be button.component.yaml. So here is the button. We have the name, our props, that is an object that have a label, the initial count and the variant. Those are strings, and this is an integer. And also we have the library as override, because we need to add our React library. So we have to defer it. So we are telling, basically we are telling our browser to first load all the HTML, all the DOM elements, and then we'll run the JavaScript. This because we need to have our DOM element in React before using them. This is our twig. The twig file defines the structure of HTML. It's used as a React mount point, and contains a single root element, which will where we will append our React component. So we can call it only button.twig, not button.html.twig. We can also have a CSS file. It is optional, but it's recommended. So we can divide our style from the main theme. must match the component name, so it will be auto-discovered by Drupal. So this is our component folder structure. As you can see, we don't have here the JS file because this will be built by Vit, by our build tool. So here is the full component folder structure. We have the SRC folder where the React lives in. We have all our component things, and they are in the same folder named React, for example. How we use the component? We use the component including it by the include function of Twig. We call the bootstrap SAS button in this way. We pass to it our props, like the label, the initial count, and the variant, and we can choose to pass the context or not. In this example, the context will be the node content, for example. Here is the usage of the title field. That is in this case we are using we are not using the with context, so we are passing the context to it, to the component. Here is how we define our component Twig to pass the data to React. So we have the data React button, which helps us to append our React application with data label, data initial count, and data variant. We pass the props that are labeled, initial count, and variant. We also have the default value here. The same as for the title, but we, as you can see, we are passing the item content from the title because we are inside the title field. So we are passing directly the item content. Ok. C'è una slide vuota. Ok. Ok. This is how it works. No. Oh, yes. Okay, I can. Okay. So this is our button, this is our title, and we are updating it from the two component. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So.
Right. Thanks. Okay. Thanks. So today we saw how we can build a single directory component, how we can, what is React and how it builds the component, how we can use a React component into our single directory component, and then how we can, Francesco show how we can configure Vit to split the JS file, improve the performance, and use the native behavior of our single directory component. And then, because, as he showed, the components must be under the same parent to share the state, we have solved this issue using this library, Zustan, to share the state between the components. So, for example, if you have a view, for example, of products, and you have the button to add to the cart, and the cart is another component somewhere else in the page, so those can connect, Zustan can connect the state, so if you click add to the cart, it will pass the variables to the other components as well, to your cart, for example. So hopefully you liked our Italian accent, you liked the session, and feel free to reach out, and thank you.
Thank you.
you got any question? Yes?
Thank you for the presentation.
Welcome.
Also, I really like the sticker for the Drupal,
Yes.
Battaglia Gam.
Yeah, thanks.
Very nice. Okay, I want to ask about how you connect all this with backend. Do you have like a specific technology stack that you use? For example, if the button has to do something with the JSON API or like update something in the backend, is there a specific technology stack that you suggest?
If it's coming from a JSON API call, I think you can use that inside the use effect and get the props from there, but then you will lose the part from the single directory component passing the props inside. So you need to get the props from the JS component, in that case, from the React component. Yep. Yep. Hmm? Okay, I've got 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation.
Thanks.
My question would be, how do you generate the JavaScript if you have not just scoped components, but if you have components which are building up on each other? So you have 2 atoms combined into molecules, making an organisms, and everyone has a JSX file. How do you make a package out of it?
That will be, well, we are not going to bundle together because they will be in different components, I guess, in that case. But the entry point is one, and then with Vite, can you go back to Vite? So what Vite is doing is going through your defined directory where you have all the React components with single directory components. It's going to scan all this folder and create the bundles for each one of them. But then we can talk better about this talk later, yes. Okay. So here it's going to scan across all the folders in your component. It's going to generate the file then here, which will have the same name of the component, so it will automatically be loaded as well. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay.